Hi, I'm Owen Martin. I'm from 2418 Greenfield, New York, and I'm working with the Veterans Breakfast Club to interview veterans as part of my Eagle project. And here I am with Dominic. Could you tell me a little bit about yourself and your service?
Sure. Well, my name is Dominic. I was in the United States Navy for about 5 years. I did a couple different tours of duty. My rating was cryptology, um, but I did everything from Presidential Honor Guard in DC to serving on the USS Ticonderoga down in South America.
When did you join the Navy?
1997. I got to go to boot camp while I was during Christmas and Thanksgiving, which I highly recommend it, by the way. It was awesome.
Um, what, how was training like at boot camp?
At boot camp, you know what? You're not going to like my answer. Um, I was expecting Full Metal Jacket. Have you ever seen that movie?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was ready to have my fingers broken and, be beat down, but there was definitely a lot of exercise, which was great. Um, but it was definitely a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. I was hyped up to be something a lot more than what it was. But I enjoyed the camaraderie. I liked the change of pace. I liked the schedule. I liked that there was always a schedule. That was always really good for me. But it was definitely easier than I thought it was going to be. And I think a lot of people hype it up in their mind when it really is.
Do you come from a military family?
No, I mean, my dad, he was a correctional officer. I wouldn't necessarily call that military, but no, not really a military family. A couple of family members here and there that were in the Navy or the Army, but I wasn't an Army brat or anything like that.
So other than a Full Metal Jacket, what inspired you to join?
What inspired me to join because um, I actually wanted to be a pilot originally, and I found out I was color deficient. And when I knew I couldn't be a pilot, I wanted to look at what other options were out there. So I looked at the service, and it looked like a good option to do something that I believed in, um, but also to be among a lot of people who want to get work done. I didn't want to be surrounded by people who didn't want to get stuff done. That's the easiest way I can put it.
Did you do any combat deployments at all?
No combat deployments, but we did do anti-drug operations in South America. So we hit places like Colombia and other areas as well. Nothing really confidential though there. Just we went all over South America, wherever there was um, issues, we'd be there, but not combat. No real combat at all.
What was it like during 9/11? Were you on duty?
During 9/11, I was at Naval Station Pascagoula, and I was actually working out on base because I just got back from a 5-month tour. We saw one of the planes on TV in the gym hit the building. I was like, oh, that's bizarre. I kept working out. When the second one hit, I stopped working out and I went home immediately to do laundry. And I know that sounds silly, but the reason is I just got back from deployment, so I had a lot of dirty uniforms. I knew I was going to get deployed pretty darn quick. And as I was driving off of base, they were locking the gates behind me. Sure enough, 2 hours later, I get the call. I'm already packing my bag. I had 28 messages from people calling, asking me what's happening. I have no idea. Only call I made was to my wife. I said, honey, I got to go. She said, okay. I drove back and we went out to sea immediately.
Um, I heard cryptology, but what was your job as a naval?
Um, my rating was cryptologic technician technical. I also did electronic warfare. What that is you've heard of different kinds of intelligence. There's human intelligence, there's electronic intelligence, there's all different kinds of intelligence fields you can get into. The one I was into was electronics. So what that means is I would monitor different signals for radars or weapon systems and was able to identify what type of weapon systems were being used, the platform that it was on, whether it be a ship, airplane, whatever, and then be able to do countermeasures based on that information. So you could basically read anything that's in the air being transmitted and figure out what's on the ground and be able to counter against it.
Were there any really hard days of that job?
Not really, because I did anti-drug ops more than anything. I wasn't in any kind of combat. So our job was a little bit different of what we were looking for. Um, I've been looking in my mind. I'm like, what can I say and not say actually? Because it's not really confidential. When you hear confidential, it's not necessarily that, Gaddafi just smoked a cigarette. Who really cares? You'll see it on the news tomorrow. What's confidential is how we got that information a day earlier than everybody else. So that's the piece I always have to think about. It's like, what can I say and not say? Um, but repeat your question again.
Any particular difficult days on the job?
The most difficult day I had by far. I remember being in port and you would buy calling cards to call your family because it was pretty expensive. They actually had calling centers at each of the different ports so you could call people. And even if you had a cell phone, I mean, the charges would be astronomical. So you'd always go to a call center. But we would get calling cards and we could also call from the ship. Now, I had about a 15-minute calling card left and I called my wife. And when I called her, we talked for about 5 to 10 minutes. And in that 5 to 10 minutes, she told me that she had a miscarriage and then the phone hung up on me. And I had no way to talk to her again for another 3 weeks. That was probably one of the hardest times because
Wow.
you love your family, you're there for your family, and I can't be there for my family.
Hmm. That sounds like a lot. Um, do you have
I
any
have
good or
I'd
bad?
have to say, actually, I'm gonna add on to say that when you're in the military, so is your family.
Mhm. Do you have any really fun memories from your service?
Oh gosh, yeah, I loved touring. I went to go skiing in Santiago, Chile. I got to go skiing in Argentina in Ushuaia, which is the most southern city. And I apologize if I sound a little nasally. I still have that cold. But just seeing all the different ports and all over South America was just really, really awesome. I got to go through the Panama Canal twice. Slept through it the second time because I've already been through it, so I just wanted to get some rest. Got to go to like Cozumel, Barbados. The water out there is just super clear, and if you ever get to go on a ship, the best way you can explain the water to anybody when you're out to sea is it looks like blue jello.
Um, would you do it all over again if you could?
Yes,
And do you recommend any that young people should join the military today?
absolutely.
How do you think, how has it changed during your service or now that you look back on it?
What do you mean? Rephrase the question.
So, did you work with the Coast Guard at all during any of your operations?
Not really. We were our own vessel. We were going past American waters, so Coast Guard wasn't involved. They're the
Okay.
Department of Defense. They only become Department of they're the Department of Transportation. They only become Department of Defense during times of war.
So, without the Coast Guard involved, did you guys like have any rapid changes in technology or something that you immediately get used to at all?
No, no. When you're on a ship, you got to remember most ships that you're on, the technology is already pretty old. I mean, I was on the Ticonderoga, was it just CG-47? It was the first Aegis cruiser, which in its heyday was amazing technology. And we upgraded computers and things like that. But as far as the actual equipment itself, it doesn't really get upgraded as much as you would think. But the equipment that we have, even being as old as it was still far superior than anything that you know, that other militaries would have. I mean, so I was running systems that were still running on tape. Um, but even I was already working off of CDs on my computers. We were past disk drives. So there was definitely a break in technology, but the capabilities of the technology was still there.
Do you have any good stories from your time of in South America?
In South America, are you talking about out to sea doing my job or you mean just visiting?
Both.
Okay, well, let's just do the visiting one. I got to go to Ecuador. Um, and we had to do a port call because we ran out of toilet paper because we all got diarrhea. Um, that's not really a good story. Just if you ever go to Ecuador, only drink it if it's from a bottle. So, but while we were in Ecuador, we got to go to the Galapagos Islands. We took a trip out there while we are in port, and that was just amazing to see all. Just to take a little boat out there and see all the islands. That was really really neat. As far as military service, um, doing our job was always fun. Um, you're always doing a lot of training constantly. You don't get a lot of sleep. I remember only getting 2 to 4 hours a day if you're lucky. But when it hit the fan, like when 9/11 happened, everything was a lot easier, oddly enough. That's what we trained for. So when 9/11 happened, I was getting 8 hours of sleep and I was doing my job. So you train really hard all the time. But when it hits the fan, you're actually more rested because you're already used to it. And I always thought that was just super cool how we did that.
Did those habits or changes of lifestyle ever relatively like come into your life over here?
I'll answer that question. I'm just going to blow my nose. Give me a second.
Okay.
All right. Ask your question again.
So how do those habits or lifestyle changes affect your life over here?
That's a good question. It's a hard question to answer. Reason being is, I mean, I grew up in a household where you said yes, sir, and yes, ma'am. Even though I was from New York, my dad was from the South. So there was already a lot of discipline growing up. What I will say I learned from the military is how to adapt quickly. Things change all the time, and you have to be able to be flexible and just take what's coming at you. And if something changes, that's all right. You adapt, you overcome. I know it sounds like a cheesy Marine Corps thing to say, but it really, that's how life is. So when you get used to being able to adapt and change, life's easier. You don't worry about the big thing, or you don't worry about the little things that happen. You got a big picture in front of you. Focus on that. One of my favorite quotes is actually from General Patton, which was, a good plan executed violently today is much better than a perfect plan a week later.
You said you really like the schedule part of boot camp. Do you still follow schedule?
Oh, absolutely. Extremely regimented when it comes to scheduling. It's the only way you can get stuff done with people. I mean, if I want to serve more customers, I got to have a plan. Otherwise, I can only take care about half of the normal workload, and then my customers aren't taken care of. So that directly corresponds to it. Absolutely.
I know what it is, but what is your job right now?
Right now, I am co-owner of Allen and Palmer. It's a hardware store in Northville and service department. We've got a team of about 18 people. The store itself's been around since the 1800s, and we provide hardware and service and excellence to the customers in this area.
All right. So how long did you, between now being the co-owner and leaving the military service, how long was that gap?
Oh, that gap? I've been out of the service since 2002.
Yeah, wow. Do you remember coming home?
What do you mean?
Like your last day leaving? Just what was that like?
Um, Not really a big deal. It was just an remember flexibility. Things you just move on and you go. So it was just another chapter. It was on the next mission. The next mission was what I was going to be doing with my wife and where I was going to be going. Just on to the next adventure.
The next schedule.
You got it.
Do you have any other lessons that you learned that you still live by?
The lessons that I learned. Let it go. Just let it go. There's really no reason to get upset about much of anything. If someone's upset, they probably got things going on in their life. One of the biggest lessons you'll learn if you ever do a mission trip or you're ever in the military is when you go overseas, you'll realize that the privileges that we have here and the responsibility we have in the US is paramount to the problems we may actually have. Because you go overseas and you'll see children begging for just scraps of change and beating each other up for it. You'll see people living in shacks. You'll realize that America is in the top 1% of the wealth in the entire world. Even our poorest are wealthier than most in the entire world. I'm not saying there aren't wealthy countries and people doing well, not at all. But the privileges that we have far exceed any of the problems we think we have.
Wow. So I'm almost out of questions. This is the part where you start. Do you have any funny stories? Any funny drug busts?
Well, I don't think I can talk about those. We did definitely collect a lot of cocaine. I would say the funny stories is when you do catch them. Let me think about what I can say and not say, because the operations still work very similar. So I got to be careful here. Give me a moment.
All right.
Crossing the equator. When we would cross the equator, it's called a shellback ceremony. Are you familiar with this?
Oh, isn't that we get like the tattoo or something?
No, you don't get any tattoos. It's just where you get to cross the equator and you just kind of celebrate being in the Navy and going over the equator. And it's kind of like just a big frat party, and we're all just teasing each other and having a good time. Those who have been in the service and have crossed the equator get to tease the ones that aren't on there, and it's a lot of fun. There's if they do it right, there'll be your biggest and chunkiest military guy will have his belly all covered in grease, and you got to take the olive out of his belly without using your hands, and it's hilarious. Um, it really is, and you're not forced to do any of that. Not by any means. I want to be real clear. It's not hazing. It's just a bunch of dudes having a good time because we've been out to sea for so long, and it's ridiculous and hilarious. So that was always really fun. Wear your sunscreen, that's for sure. I got burned when I was at the Galapagos Islands, and I had this ridiculous tan down my shirt. So don't ever do that. Wear your sunscreen. There's always something going on in a ship that's funny. Sometimes you get different, when you go to different ports, you have to get the food from that port. So it's not always in English. So it's always fun listening to the guys have fun with the different labels on everything. When I went down to South America, I didn't realize you could buy milk that's not refrigerated. Once you open it up, you've got to drink it, but it just comes in boxes and it's just on a shelf, just like everything else. Once you open it, then yes, you can use it all up or refrigerate it. So getting used to warm milk took a little bit. Yeah, it's all an experience. I remember in boot camp, I was second in command. I was in an integrated division, which means both male and female. So I was in charge of the male division, and she was in charge of the female division, but I was second in command overall. We were together. I remember one of my guys, he didn't bring his boots with him or his sneakers with him because he was on light limited duty because he was injured. Now, I told him several times that he was supposed to bring his sneakers, but he still forgot them. So I got in trouble because I was the one who was in charge. So I had to exercise for hours because of this mistake of not making sure my crew had all of their gear, which looking back is probably a pretty decent lesson. But I was ticked off because I knew I told this guy multiple times. So I exercised for probably about 2 hours and I was fully sweaty. And I just kept on just going and joking about it the whole time, to the point where the RDC didn't know what to do with me, trying to break me down, but it wasn't happening. So I just kept on exercising more. I was like, hey, how about I put on my jacket? It makes me sweat more, so it'll do more for me, Chief. I was being really belligerent jerk. So I ended up exercising for about 4 hours in the winter. I'm completely drenched. It got to the point where we just had to go eat. And I'm out in the cold, just freezing my butt off because I'm soaked and frozen now because it's all my sweat. But I will say, my team never forgot their sneakers ever again.
You guys pull any pranks on each other at all?
Oh, absolutely. I remember there was the other division above us. They did a prank on us. I don't know what it was, but it was enough to make us a little frustrated. So we went up to their space while they weren't there, and we tied all of their sneakers together in one big ball with the most craziest knots you could find. And it was a ball about the size of a car of boots and sneakers all just knotted together in a big old mess. So yeah, they didn't mess with us anymore after that. But no, it was always fun. I loved going overseas. I liked going and seeing different cultures. I liked seeing different areas. When you go down to Argentina, one of the cool things I thought was when you're on the ocean, you could see these mountains that are just peaked up super tall, just right off the water. It's like you're in Colorado, but on the ocean at the same time. It's absolutely gorgeous. And there's a lot of that in the US as well, but to be on a ship and to see that for the first time was definitely an experience I would recommend to everyone. Going to Brazil and seeing the culture there was a lot of fun. Going to Chile, going to Panama Canal, all those places were great. But nothing was better than coming home and seeing your wife on the shore.
Now, this is putting you on the spot, so feel free to take a little bit to answer. But do you have any messages for me, the younger generation at all?
You know, I think a lot of people put younger generations in a bad rap. We do the same stupid things as adults as kids do as kids. We just cover it up because we know how to, because we have the experience to. I think there's a lot to be said for a younger generation. I would say don't let older people say you can't do things. Your light can shine in any situation. You guys are awesome. And there's too much in this world that says you need a therapist. There's too much in this world that says, how's the way? I want to say it the right way. I'm not saying we can't be in touch with our feelings. I'm not saying that we can't be emotional creatures, because everyone is. We're all a little crazy. But we all blow it out of proportion. Sometimes life happens and we need to push through and get it done. And if there was any message I would have for any of our younger generation, would be stop listening to the whiners. In high school, there's going to be people that make fun of you. I don't care. Once you're out of high school, that stops if you're a normal human being. All this emotional baggage that people think they have, go to another country just for a second. When you see a kid that has to hike 5 miles just to get dirty water, and you can see the worms crawling through his stomach, that kid's got problems. If someone didn't get all of the books or doesn't have more than 3 friends in school and they think they're upset about that, I'm going to be clear with you. Get over it. If you've got 2 or 3 good friends, you're doing all right. We put too much on what this world wants us to be on social media, on what people think we should be, and we do it to ourselves. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, honestly, have you ever put anything negative on Facebook of how bad things are, or do we always put the good things on? So we all get this image that life is great for everyone, and we get down on ourselves. Go to another country just once, and you'll realize how blessed you really are and how thankful you should be for those 2 good friends that you've got. And we think we got to have all these friends and all these things. And I know I'm kind of soapboxing a little bit, and I've said a few things, but life is not as hard as we make it out to be. Love the people that are around you. Be thankful for what you have, and go and get it done.
That was good. I like that a lot. Thank you.
So,
I don't have anything else. So if you want to add anything else on your mind, you can talk about, feel free. If not, then
I'll say this. I'm honored that you picked me to do this. I know I'm a quirky, weird dude. I can come off as super fun and playful, but also sometimes cranky and angry. But I love what the Boy Scouts are doing. I love what, let me rephrase that. I love what the Boy Scouts started out to be, and I'm glad that you're a part of it. I think it's really cool. Don't stop what you're doing. And I'm just honored that you'd pick me to be a part of it.
thank you so much for your service. I mean, it's been great talking to you.
You as well, Owen.